Castor oil. Victims were forced to drink large quantities of castor oil, a powerful laxative. This resulted in uncontrollable bouts of vomiting and diarrhea, which led to severe dehydration and painful, humiliating public collapse. While rarely directly fatal, it was an effective tool for humiliation, incapacitation, and instilling fear. Crushed by an elephant. Used for centuries, particularly in South and Southeast Asia, the elephant was a symbol of royal power, and its use in executions demonstrated the ruler's absolute authority. Victims were typically placed on the ground, and a trained executioner elephant would crush their skulls or limbs with its foot, or sometimes slowly drag them to death. Toinakulei, the Roman punishment of the sack. The condemned was sewn into a leather sack together with a live rooster, a snake, a monkey, and a dog. The sack was thrown into water. The victim would be attacked by the animals while they drowned. Strappado, a favorite used during interrogations in Europe's Inquisitions. The victim's hands were tied behind their back and suspended from a rope by the wrists. The drop would dislocate both shoulders. Weights intensified the tearing. Drawing and quartering. In medieval England, this punishment was reserved for high treason. Its purpose wasn't simply to kill, but to erase the traitor's honor completely, to make betrayal unthinkable. The victim was drawn to the site, hanged but cut down while alive, then disemboweled, and their entrails burned before their eyes. Finally, their body was quartered. Gridiron. The victim was tied to a metal grill and slowly roasted over hot coals. Some people were even basted in oil first to ensure proper broiling, prolonging the suffering. Rat torture. A pot containing live, hungry, or diseased rats is placed against the victim's stomach. The container is heated. The rats, panicking, burrow their only way out, through the victim's body. Boiling. In medieval Europe and parts of Asia, execution by boiling was sometimes used for crimes seen as particularly heinous. The punishment was public, as it was performed before crowds of people. The victim was immersed, sometimes slowly, into a large cauldron of boiling water, oil, or tar. They then would suffer a prolonged agony of being cooked alive. Keel hauling. This was a type of punishment specifically for sailors, dreamt up by the Dutch Navy in the late 16th century. A rope was run under the ship's keel. The victim was tied to it and dragged along the sharp, barnacle-encrusted hull. If they didn't drown, they were cut mercilessly by barnacles on the ship's bottom. Scaphism. The victim was placed between two hollowed-out rowboats, head and limbs protruding. They were then force-fed milk and honey to induce severe diarrhea, which stayed within the wooden enclosure. More honey attracted more insects. Flies and maggots would slowly devour the victim alive over days. White room. A modern sensory deprivation. The victim is in a completely sealed, featureless white room with constant light and sound. Deprived of stimulus, the mind turns inward, leading to hallucinations and a complete psychological breakdown. Pendulum. Popularized in fiction, but based on Inquisition-era fear. The victim is strapped to a table. A large, razor-sharp pendulum swings slowly, descending with each pass. The psychological terror of the inevitable slice was a tool for confession. Ling Qi, often called death by 1,000 cuts, was an extreme form of execution once used in Imperial China. It was meant for crimes considered unforgivable, treason, or severe betrayal. It involved the systematic removal of body parts over an extended period to prolong suffering and mutilate the body for the afterlife. Beyond the physical act, its main intent was symbolic: to deny the condemned person spiritual wholeness after death, demonstrating total dishonor. Kang. The kang was a wooden collar placed around the neck of offenders. Rather than extreme physical pain, it imposed public shame and isolation. Offenders were displayed in markets or streets, dependent on passers-by for food and water. It reflected a society where punishment emphasized community judgment and moral correction rather than physical destruction. Brazen bull. Constructed as a hollow metal statue, the victim was locked inside, and a fire was lit beneath it. The metal would heat until it glowed, roasting the victim alive. A tube system converted their screams into sounds resembling the bellowing of a bull. Blood eagle. The victim was placed face down, their back sliced open, and their ribs severed from the spine. The lungs were then pulled out through the wounds and draped over the shoulders like a pair of bloody, unfolding wings. Death was likely from shock or suffocation.